Welcome to Military Faith and Spiritual Resilience. This is Elizabeth Fulgaro. With me today is Alexandra Siliezar, Gold Star's sister to Abraham Siliezar. Thank you for being here again.
Thank you for having me back, Elizabeth.
Would really like to hear more about Abraham and just kind of life and how things were going. So you had shared that in 1990, Abraham left the military. He was done with the Marines. What happened next?
Well, he lived a good life in Southern California and enrolled at UC Irvine. Later on, he came to UC Berkeley. He enrolled for just being closer to the family, and he graduated with his degree in sociology. He really wanted, and he did. He helped a lot of people. He helped people, primarily the immigrant population and the people who were seeking jobs, have job training. He became a social worker, and he loved it. But he did a lot of work with smaller agencies in San Francisco. And as smaller agencies lose contracts or they just closed different agencies, and he was working with grants, and he also worked for the San Francisco Housing Task Force in San Francisco with Mayor Agnes. Eventually, he wasn't working with that because, again, he just moved around with different programs, but he continued to work serving the community.
What did he help the immigrants accomplish? What was the specific work? Do you know?
Within social work, he did a lot of brokering in terms of having people link into job trainings and health resources, even college classes to learn how to speak English, anything that was really needed to help them succeed. And he was there as a sustainer of those services.
Finding the resources and linking them to those resources and following up with them. That's pretty fabulous work.
Yeah, very proud of him.
Yeah, absolutely. So and what was going on for you at this time? Because we kind of left you in high school when he joined the Marines.
Oh, well, I was very diligently figuring it out. And just like I mentioned earlier, when you're an immigrant, a lot of times you have to figure it out on your own. And I had the assistance of friends who showed me how they enrolled in college. So I enrolled myself in college, and I did work to sustain my college education, and I knew I wanted to be a therapist. I think that if you were here for the first segment, you realize that I was helping those children immigrating while I was in middle school. Well, when I was in high school, I really love that feeling of helping others. And I myself joined the San Francisco in our high school, we had a peer counseling team. So I joined the peer counseling team, and I got myself a little volunteer job at Juvenile Hall, and they said, no, that's for college students, but I got myself in there. And I went to college knowing that I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to help others. It felt easy, and it felt natural, and it was something that I knew I could do. And so I pursued my career as a therapist.
That's great. Where did you go to school?
I went to San Francisco State.
San Francisco State. Were you able to finish all your education there?
Yes. I received my both bachelor's and master's in clinical psychology.
That's fabulous. And where did you practice? Where did it go from there?
Well, it's such a blessing. God has so many plans for us ahead of time. When I was very, very young, I had dreams, as most little teen girls when they fall in love, and I fell in love with the word love. And I found this little town called Love, I think it was Love, now I forgot, but it's in Colorado.
Loveland?
Loveland, thank you. And I wanted to go live in Loveland, Colorado. I just thought it was so lovely. And I just, and I remember going for a job interview I had placed my application to work with the San Francisco Unified School District as an assistant teacher, just as a job to get me through college.
Yeah.
And amongst all those applications and applicants, there was a social worker by the name of Barbara, and she saw my application and called me for this position that they were starting at San Francisco. That was following up with a study that was happening in New York and helping children, little preschoolers, with non-directive play therapy. And so that meant non-licensed, counselors, you could, for the lack of just peer, not peer, but with just assistants, special friends we were called. And they wanted to not have already that someone coming in with training and trying to do their work, but actually just really being a play partner with a child who were suffering from all various traumas and issues. And so I started, so they offered me this job, and I said, no, thanks, because I'm actually going to go to Loveland, Colorado. And they called me again, and I said, okay, I'll come for the interview. I came for the interview, and at the end of the interview, I said, but I can't stay long because I want to go to Loveland, Colorado. And I took on the job and loved it, absolutely loved it. To this day, I love it so much. And Barbara was a key person to helping me get through a lot of the training that I still have. I worked it was called the PIP program, the Primary Intervention Program. I worked with PIP for about 9 years while going to school to become a therapist. And it was wonderful. I worked with PIP, never moved to Colorado. And that was my life until I graduated with my master's.
God does have different plans than ours, right?
Yes.
It sounds like it was good. Sounds like it was really good. So you're now established in your career. Your brother's now established in his career. He's working in and out of San Francisco, right?
Yes.
And you're in San Francisco. How did life kind of proceed from there?
My brother did suffer from some traumatic experiences while in the Marines, and I was not necessarily in touch with what was going on. I think I was just too busy, both in school and just having my own growth periods, that I didn't really notice what was going on for him. But he definitely suffered from PTSD.
So how did that first become evident? Like, how did you become aware, or your family become aware of what was going on?
I know that for a while he stopped working, and I didn't know why. Again, I wasn't really paying attention too closely, but he had stopped working. And I think he struggled with that because that's not what he wanted. He wanted to work. But one day in San Francisco, he was assaulted.
What happened?
He was coming out of a 7-Eleven, and a person just walking by punched my brother. And it was completely unexpected, and my brother fell backwards. And his cranium broke in 2 different areas.
So he hit something. He fell backwards.
Yeah, sometimes you have these big, like fire hydrant pieces coming out of the walls of buildings.
Okay.
And he hit one of those.
Oh my!
I was told later that someone even on the 2nd floor of that same building heard him fall. People came. Apparently, it was very violent. He suffered 3 strokes.
Did they just hit him once? Or
just once. It was one punch out of the blue.
And they kept walking?
Yes. The gentleman it was just someone high on drugs, just in San Francisco.
Oh my
very
goodness.
Transient, hit my brother, and he fell backwards.
Oh my goodness.
Cracked his head.
3 strokes?
3 strokes.
Right then?
Yes.
Once he was in the hospital? Or
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Even though he had a wallet and, identification, etc. Somehow the hospital did not identify him for a week. He was a John Doe.
Oh, my goodness.
And later on, finally, when I found out that he was there for a week, to this day, it just boggles my mind. And the surgeon told me they didn't know who he was and they were going to release him out when he came in. And that somehow, somewhere, someone said, let's do an MRI. And that's when they found out he had the strokes and three different areas where his brain was bleeding and had 2 cracks in his cranium. And he ended up staying in the hospital for about 6 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
And he had lost his vision. He had lost his balance. He couldn't really walk because he couldn't see and he was completely ill. He was in the ICU for at least a couple of weeks, if not a little longer. It's been a while. But then he was in the transitional ICU for a few more weeks before he was then transferred to the brain trauma center in Palo Alto.
Was that the VA center?
At the VA, yes. And he stayed there for almost 5 months or so.
5 months. When is that this happened?
Oh, let's see. Good question. I think about 7 years ago now.
Okay, so he worked for a decade or so, and then he was struggling to work because of the PTSD.
Yeah, yes.
And then he has this random thing happen to him. So 7 years ago, we're in 2022 as you and I meet to do this today, right? So 2015, 2016,
yes,
in there
2015. That's
2015.
Right.
Okay, so he was a John Doe. So did you know he was missing?
No, it was just it had been a good week that from the time that it happened to the time that I was notified, and it was not uncommon for us to not talk for a week.
Sure. So did the hospital find you? Did they figure it out?
A social worker called me.
Okay, so
they figured it out.
They did figure it out.
I think they notified the VA eventually, and the VA called me. He was at a non-VA hospital when it first happened.
So how was that for you?
Now?
Well, we only have now, but how was that for you?
At the time, I have been working at a hospital now for almost 24 or 26 years. And I think that I took it very much like someone who works in a hospital. It's matter of fact, okay, what do we need to get done? What comes next? What happened? And it was very, very clean, very hygienic. I didn't feel like I had a lot of emotion or a lot of time to do emotion sustaining any type of feelings or thoughts. I just had to move forward. What do we do now? What happened? Where are we? And it would just, I stepped into the advocate role.
Where were your parents when this was happening?
Here.
Okay, but you got the phone call.
Yes.
Okay, and you stepped into the advocate role.
Yes.
That's a lot.
It's okay.
That's okay. So how was your brother when you first saw him?
He was unconscious.
Okay.
He was unconscious. He had all sorts of apparatus tied to him. I didn't know if he was going to make it or not. At one point, I brought my daughter to see him, and she was traumatized by seeing something like that. So she begged not to go back, and I tried not to take her back. She was very young. Not knowing whether he would make it or not, I felt like she needed to see him because this is your uncle, and even if this is the last or worst memory you have, you need to see your uncle, and he needs to see or hear you, even if he's unconscious. I brought my mother. I don't think I brought my father, or I think I might have brought him later on. I don't know why I took care of my dad more psychologically. I'm not sure why, but I brought my mom more. I think moms need to see their children no matter what they look like.
That actually might be it. That might be it. Can we continue talking about this in the next
Absolutely.
episode? Thank you.